cold at the touch, dead in the eyes, no signs of life no more. I put your love under the knife, leave me to die here all alone. No signs of life no more, no. A crying dove may never fly. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, 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 oh. Just black and white. Black and white, just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Just let me go. It's only right. For all I know, it's only matter. It's calico, it's black and white. White, white, white. Black and white. Yeah. Black and white. Oh, 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 oh. Just black and white. It's black and white.
Good evening, ladies and gents. Welcome to Simracersworld TV. My name is Hasse Rømer, and I'll be your host for tonight. I've got the booth all to myself, so what a party that's gonna be indeed. We're here at Kansas for the NOIZEZZ Kansas 160, the 8th round of the SRW NASCAR Next Gen Cup Series. And as the season draws towards the final few rounds, I think indeed we can expect the action to heat up at the front of the standings. And speaking of standings, we've got a few sets of standings to look at. But first of all, we've got a bit of results in from qualifying indeed. And as such, we shall have a look. John Barnes taking pole position by 0.04 of a second, clear of Bart Daleman. And Maddie Sufi, Paul Gosling, Michael Tyler, Bram van Uyften, Robbie Lundgren, John Tusting, and Adam Wright, Austin Craterix, Hendrik de Grave there, a 10th and a half down in 11th place, and James Hall, Damien van Immerseel, and Stuart Musselwhite. With that said, I think it is indeed time to have a look at the second aforementioned set of standings. And that is the championship standings, where Maddie Sufi leads Hendrik de Grave by 5 points. That's not a lot indeed. Kimbe Haight is in with a shout as well, though expected to be between Sufi and de Grave in the end. Fourth at the moment, Adam Wright with a 221 points, just 2 points clear of Austin Craterix. So despite of 2 wins, also a fair few situations of bad luck to his name over the course of the season. He'll be hoping for a strong result tonight as well. We have a look at the lower order drivers, so to say, but still winning drivers down here. Of course, Tim Perry, whom I'm afraid we haven't seen for a while. I think it was something with the work schedule not really fitting. And of course, the team standings, Flemish leading by a relatively healthy margin ahead of Quantum Racing, then the 2 Simracersworld teams, E-Team Brit and Boosted. But it'll be interesting to see if anyone can really mount a challenge to Flemish Sim Sports, who as a team has been very, very strong indeed so far this season. And with that said, let's get to some racing here. We've had a very tight qualifying session. I do believe this is our first serious visit to the Kansas Speedway, as it's now called. And dare I say, a relatively straightforward tri-oval. Of course, that means that it's also going to be relatively flat out all the way through. We expect the tire management to be really, really crucial as always. But on a track like this, it really does make all the difference, and the driver's going way down on the apron here. In real life, this track has indeed also shown us some pretty great races. Something that I've looked into myself for once, and I feel like it's been my excuses. There's been some insane finishes with drivers running out of fuel and going too wide for the entirety of the 2 last laps. Stuff like that. Stuff that we want to see tonight, which is great indeed. And so far in this warm-up, we have got Austin Craterix posting the fastest time. 30.23 seconds for the man from Northampton. By the way, a warm welcome to Kimbe Haight, to Jakob Szymanski, and to Robbie Lundgren as well. The phantom of the track. The phantom of the track is here. Well, what do we call me then, Robbie? I shan't be the one to give myself nicknames, at least. I'll let that task befall on you guys. Anyway, we're in for a good one, I think, here tonight. It's going to be interesting to see just who comes out on top. And last week we had a a real sprinter stage to begin the cycling analogies quick. There's no one to oppose me here tonight. Oh, what is it not gonna end up in? It's a good question. But it was certainly some hectic action over the final few couple of laps. Like I've rarely seen it before, and it really came in together for the approach to the line, and it was a very, very, very exciting finish. So certainly hoping to see more of the same here for tonight. We've got 160 laps to do of this 1.5-mile tri-oval. The terror of the track. Oh, someone's hit the wall. And it, for some reason, has not found it enough to really appear. There it was. Was it Greatorex? It might have been. Was he just coming to a stop? It was indeed one of the... Oh, I think that was John Tusting. Yeah, the culprit indeed from last week, Kim Behate. All these kind of accidents in these sort of races, it takes so little to create so much havoc. And the fact that we've seen 2 races this season go from green to checkered with the cursed cast. That's actually not a bad one. But it says a lot about the manners of drivers in this series, I think, and it's a pleasure to see here a little bit of a blink from Henrik de Grave. So we'll hop on board with the man from Manchester here, John Barnes, who's incidentally coming into the pits just as we are about to take an onboard ride. We'll see if de Grave's connection improved, but it certainly doesn't look like it, and that might spell trouble for Hendrik de Grave, which is certainly not what you want to have coming into a race. Of course, it could be connection issues on my end, but oh, we have been butt bombed here. Uh-oh, yeah, let's time for yes, thank you very much. I think that's the first time I've seen this so far on SRW TV. Anyways, let us not get distracted by okay, it would be enough watch stream, girls here. My apologies, but that is actually one of the funnier butt scams I've seen. Greatorex is sideways in the 13 machine. He hasn't found that to be his lucky number this season, as I was coming around to before. And Robbie Lundgren from Karlskoga. It's my best attempt to say it in authentic Swedish. I answer no such questions, Kim. Never. Anyway, funny how such a little thing can provide us with so much entertainment. We've just got about 10 seconds left, as I say it, of this warm-up session, which means, in turn, we are about to get the 160 laps of racing underway in just about now, as Greatorex swings into the pit lane at the Texas Speedway. Of course, this round proudly sponsored by NOIZEZZ, maker of premium earbuds and ear protection indeed, go check out their webpage in the description below. And with that said, time to have a look at the grid order with John Barnes, as mentioned before, in a 31 dead on pole position, 4 thousandths of a second clear of Bart Daleman, who joins him on row 1. Row 2, that's going to be Matti Sufi and Paul Gosling, with Michael Tyler and Bram van Uiften on row 3. Then Robbie Lundgren and John Tusting on row 4. Adam Wright joined by Austin Greatorix on row 5. Then De Grave and James Hall on row 6. And rounding off the grid tonight is Damien Feminifil and Stuart Musselwhite, indeed, who did not qualify, but who I believe is indeed there in the 18 Monster liveried car at the end of the field. We're about to get the truck of very certain safety off on the warm-up lap, and it's going to be interesting to see just what kind of a race awaits us here for tonight. And very much one of those situations where I'd be used to having a co-commentator that would pick up that brilliant segue into all of the stuff that we're expecting to see. But it is indeed time to bookity. It is, all prayers aside, of course, we do hope for the best, as we always do. And speaking of things that we hope for, I certainly hope for iRacing to implement a camber angle from the pace truck. That would be brilliant. And I think actually... that's going to be one to think out. But it's going to be John Barnes and Bart Daleman on the row at the very head of the field, leading them into it. Interesting to see only one Flemish car on the grid for tonight. Only Hendrik de Grave. And here it is, an early go for John Barnes. And I think Sufi's quite won to it. He's on the tail of his teammate early on here. He's going to be challenging for this later on, that's for sure. Here is Paul Gosling in the 5, trying to go on the high side. And then earlier... we've spoken quite a bit about Robbie Lundgren. He's right here, side by side with John Tusting, as they exchange paint for a second there. Probably want to be mindful of that. Look at that, Gosling goes through up ahead here. Sufi might have gotten a poor run. And I might have said too much when I said this was an uncomplicated affair, because it certainly doesn't look that way. And now with the opening couple of laps in process, just how much change are we going to see, and just how quickly is it going to happen? I think it's Stuart Musselwhite and Damien Feminifil, who's been ever so slightly dislodged from the pack, but it's very much pack racing still here. Van Uiften also had a role to play in last week's race. Not for the negative in any way, but he was up there in the end with the lead pack, albeit a lap down, having his own battle indeed. And look at that now, 3 wide for a short second. I think this must be one of the absolutely widest tracks of the season, and there's a huge amount of space to play with. And it's that Paul Gosling finding himself down in 11th. Early days here. Adam Wright in 12th place as well, the podium finisher from last week. We've now got Daleman leading, and you gotta wonder, John Barnes also being passed. Look at this! 3 wide, 3 abreast all the way through here. Cars everywhere. That's a very good way to put it, Kim. I'll serve it to you as a back rub if you'd like as well. But of course, it's a commentator's job to talk about those decisive moments in a championship, and I shall not refrain from that as such. No matter who's involved. I was just about to say, even if it's myself, but that's gonna be hard indeed. Anyway, back to the action, and John Barnes now being joined by Austin Greatorex there, keeping his low line and making no fool of himself here, and so is Hendrik de Graave, who's climbed up the order. He's gonna be side by side with Greatorex, and for the first time we're seeing something that assembles a bit of single file running, but it seemed they were all catching up as they were running in single file, which might be what we're gonna see again here. It's certainly made for an interesting few laps here. That is more than certain. And here's the tidy style of Austin Greatorex. We've seen this so many times before. Often chooses the tight lower line and really makes that work out so well for himself. Daleman has now slipped ever so slightly back, and it's Sufi leading Lundgren, and then Barnes side by side here with de Graave. And as such, I think again it's going to be expected that, of course, there's going to be a lot of racing out here on a track like this that invites to it in the end, after all. But there could be a big difference to be made on pit stops. It'll be interesting to see just how much the tires have to say here as well, and if it's one of those tracks where you can basically go all the way through without changing them, but I don't think that's gonna be a thing here. And so much more of the lap is gonna be turning than what we see at the super speedways, which is usually where we see drivers being able to go through without swapping tires. That worked out brilliantly last week at Talladega. More of this packed racing. Real restrictor plate style stuff here, of course, as it is. So no wonder. And a difficult kettle of fish for the drivers to navigate in the end as well. Been trying to really gather up upon the history of what I'm commentating upon a virtual version of here on Monday nights. And I have to say that as with so many things, getting into the history of something often makes it all the more compelling. Although I have to say, as a European, those NASCAR drivers are a bunch of rednecks. But that is what it is. And I don't expect our bunch here to be as rednecky. Of course, some of you might be able to prove it otherwise. Here's Mehdi Sufi, though. Who does indeed fly off the top of the field at the moment. Although there is a bunch in tight contention, but he is an amateur pilot. Oh, that was a bit of a close moment. Let's see here. We have yet to go on board with anyone, but I think it would be a pretty good time to get a bit of a view from the rear corner. No, indeed. We don't see many fist fights in any European sports, really. The closest we get, I guess, is in football, when people shove each other around for a bit, and then someone tells them to calm down, and they do so, and then they keep on playing their match. You know, that's sort of how it works, isn't it? Although, another nice little cycling reference is that actually I think cycling is one of the sports where I've seen the most fist fights over the years. Oh yeah, hockey, that's a good point, Jakob. But then again, is hockey really a European sport? I mean, doesn't it kind of come from over there as well? Ice hockey, and at least it's big over there in the States and in Canada as well. It's easy to get sidetracked, and we are getting sidetracked, but there is also a lot of racing happening. Here is Hendrik de Graeve, who might find himself as the meat of a neat little hamburger there. Not quite happening yet. Here is Mehdi Soufi's on the outside, on the high side of Creator X in the 13. He's holding off here. I wonder why. Might just a bit of a poor run. It's been a very nice fight here up front. That is true indeed. And now it's Robbie Lundgren from De Graeve, Soufi, Daleman and Creator X with John Barnes coming through. Still a long way to go. Very true indeed. We've been racing for just under 10 minutes. We've almost done 20 laps of the 160 to go, but it is indeed going to be a hectic race. And I think, from what we're seeing so far, if this stays green, whoever nails the pit stops... Oh, De Graeve and Lundgren, and it almost worked out, but it didn't quite. De Graeve, he's now ahead of Soufi. That's the two championship duelists. Soufi, one of the few cars that actually have a teammate. Of course, Quantum have 3 cars in this bunch. Although John Tosting, there's been a bit of a split here. That's interesting to see. Let's just bring up and see just kind of a gap we're looking at here. It certainly isn't much. It's certainly closable, and the more they fight up ahead, the better the chance for the drivers. Back here it's Paul Gosling, John Tosting and Adam Wright. 3 Brits with Damien van Immerseel and I think Stuart Musselwhite just about on the back of that second pack. They're about a second and a half away. But look at this now yet again. The shuffling continues to happen. And it's been excellent so far here. Team Brit's doing well for themselves. That's both James Hall and Michael Tyler so far. The 68 and 96 cars. A shame we don't have the static cams from here. I do really enjoy the static cams. I'll be honest to say that real quick here as we go on board with Bart Daleman. I'll be interested to see just what kind of... It's a slight lift, I think. That's great driving from Creator X on the outside to sense. And of course being told that Daleman is peeking his nose in. That was great driving to just about stay clear. That gives you a really good idea of just how close these drivers are running. And at what sort of speeds as well. Something entirely different here. In the vicinity of 300 kilometers an hour. As of course the next-gen machines have gone from manual 4-speed transmission to a sequential, though still clutch-operated sequential 5-speed. That's a little bit weird to operate as well. At least so I found it. And interesting here because the top 8 drivers still separated by less than 1 second. And that bodes well for the remainder of the race. Now look at this. Hall, Van Uyften. Van Uyften was on the tail before, but James Hall's coming back alongside Adam Wright, John Tosting and company. And it's still Lundgren out ahead. The privateer, the phantom of the track, and someone's had a problem, I'm afraid. Or has it? Oh, that's a bit of blinking from Michael Tyler. That's much, much better. and for once, not being sarcastic about it at all. That actually is, because it could have been... it could have been a bit of a heartbreak. indeed, and if anyone's watching and thinking, like myself, some NASCAR action, we do very much have space in the field for the final part of the season. You can touch with the Simracersworld admins, or through Facebook, or through joining our Discords. The field, although big enough to warrant some decent racing here, as Michael Tyler is sweeping in through on Van Uyften. So I'm saying that it seems to me here, as we're closing in on the 30th lap of racing here, we've been going for just about 15 minutes now. It's sort of, and I say sort of, settling down, because it's not really in any way settled when you still have, well, about 6 cars within a second from one another, and especially on a track as wide as this. Everybody sort of realizes as well that it doesn't make any real sense to continue fighting for each and every single lap of them. That's ever so often when it ends in tears. Daleman is playing a waiting game at the moment. I think that's the case for several of the drivers, as we do have some action up ahead, I believe, at the moment as well. That's Sufi looking up the inside, wanting to take the Quantum drivers with him. And park Hendrik de Grave up there. So far, no one's really been able to make any sort of break for it. Oh, de Grave, who ever so slightly falls back here, which could be all strategy. That is very true. And I think a lot of whatever the drivers will be doing at this stage of the race is just trying to get to the final bit in a good spot, in a good position, with a competitive car. Lundgren and Sufi now in the lead ahead of Greatorex, John Barnes and Lundgren, who's been parked on the outside, but it looks more, again, sort of more reminiscent, like you do your 10 laps of pulling at the front, and then you swing off to to let someone else do the pulling up there. Now we see Quantum with a bit of a move for the front here. That's Greatorex and John Barnes. And those two, both of them really have the speed, so they could attempt something. Either with Barnes just ever so slightly trying to hold off everybody else, and that's a slight bit of contact between himself and Robbie Lundgren, and that's almost gone much worse than just what it was, a very slight contact. There's more contact between de Grave and I think Michael Tyler. It was. Quick second look here. Oh yeah, that's a bit of a knock as well. And you can see the scrape on the side of Hendrik de Grave's car. The slightest bit of damage. I don't think it's gonna cost anything really. Now Greatorex, Sufi, Lundgren, Barnes, and Daleman is the top 5. And Michael Tyler and Adam Wright following on and close in behind. Now here side by side with Adam Wright, who'll be trying to move on through, and De Grave might have been a bit of a scare for Hendrik. Don't think it's gonna cost him too much performance, but you never know with the aerodynamics of the machines. Certainly at these speeds being important here. Van Hoeften is gonna attempt to move up on the inside of his compatriot. Up ahead though, Greatorex, Sufi, Lundgren with John Barnes on the tail. And then a slight gap to Bart Daleman. But the real gap at the moment is to Adam Wright and then to the group in behind, which is another split starting to happen here as Hendrik de Grave makes it 3 wide for second. I do have to take the luxury of a drink once in a while. My drink of choice is a Danish specialty called Faxe Kondi, which only Danes know what is, I think. It's kind of reminiscent of Sprite or 7-Up, or that's kind of sporty soda, albeit much better, obviously. But it's good, Faxe Kondi. It's there was a song a few years ago. Gained massive popularity in my home country, named after this this soda. Yes, indeed. Van Hoeften is ever so slightly off as well. They keep on scrapping here. Look at this. This is Tusting, De Grave. Oh, they've collected each other. They might just be okay here, though. The caution is out. The caution is out. So for the first time in a few races, we've seen the caution come out here, and I think the situation is arisen from a wee misunderstanding between the two. But it's certainly not going to be optimal for any of them. Look at Hendrik de Grave here. Now towards the back of the pack. I'd imagine this to be far enough into the race that people will take their pit stops. Well, here we are. Yeah, that's on board with John Barnes. There's a John Barnes. John Tusting, of course. The second of the Johns. But a very nice catch, first of all. Just seemed to me that De Grave was expecting Tusting to go all the way towards the edge of the apron. When he didn't, he got chopped from above. And they're all filing in, single filing into the pits here, under caution, which of course does make perfect sense. While we're under caution, what also makes perfect sense is for you to visit the sponsor of tonight's race, NOIZEZZ, maker of specialty earplugs and ear protection. Especially for motorsports, actually, and they're one of the few makers of such, as we have a fair few motorsports nuts in amongst us here. Let's That's a fairly interesting one. No webcam girls on NOIZEZZ, Kim, I'm afraid. Just protection for your ears that'll make them go with you in a good way into your old age. And back out we are from the pit stop here under caution. And that's gonna bring everyone in together yet again. I think Tusting and De Grave as well. I think both of them taking their repairs, which of course makes perfect sense. The question is De Grave gonna be able to catch up to the truck up ahead? He's gonna be passing the line here. Lights are off. No, it's not. Lights aren't off yet. So we're gonna do one more lap, and these are some fairly long caution periods here, it has to be said. Greaterix got one more lap to swing around. In true Jack Oliphant style. Time for me to tell you a little about the Kansas Speedway, one of the newer additions to the NASCAR calendar. It was opened in 2001, of course, so it's a 20th anniversary this year of racing at, as it was earlier called, I think, the Kansas Motor Speedway, now just known as the Kansas Speedway. And really, I don't think there's all that much to say here. Look at Greaterix, he wants to get on with it. Should be careful though, he might just get a penalty for swooping on through on the truck. But don't do that. We'll see if lights go out on this very occasion. And indeed they do. So it's about to go back to green and back to racing here. I think one of those caution periods where, not to wish ill upon those involved in it in any way, but we could have done without the caution. All that grass on the infield offering plenty of space in that particular situation for drivers to go on to. But we are going to get a restart here. And it is going to be with Hendrik De Grave a long way back in the field. He started 11th. Now he's got a second fight back to go through here. Been racing for about 25 minutes at this point. And Austin Greaterix looking for win number 3 of his season. Truck peels off to the left. And Greaterix has pulled the hammer and oh, there's a little bit of trouble. And someone's almost spun there on the restart. That looked a little bit strange to me. Seemed like there was a jank through the pack. Someone might have gone a little bit too early. And De Grave, oh look at De Grave! His front end is missing, and that is not the way to start your last to first challenge. That is something very, very new indeed. And you gotta wonder just what happened to Hendrik De Grave here. And on board we are. Oh, so they just flung on the brakes. And he's gonna be absolutely fuming with that, I'm afraid. And you can just see the rubber banding down through. They're not the only ones to make contact. Well, the reverse effect of rubber banding, if you will, the accordion effect. But no real fun about the possible implications of such an incident, and might be very, very costly for Flemish and Hendrik de Graeve. And now it's Greatorex Barnes leading Lundgren Sufi, and Adam Wright is really trying to get back to it. Here on the high side of Bart Daleman. Daleman's gonna get back in there on the inside, and he's got Bram van Hoefden in behind as well. Van Hoefden playing the confident but yet patient card in the 284. And I think Daleman's gonna sneak on through this time around. Yes, indeed. And de Graaf is in the pits for repairs. He's gonna hope for the lucky dog, I think, later on in this race. That'll be his, well, not his only hope, but it's gonna be very, very hard to come back from, I'm afraid, and that is very, very unfortunate for Hendrik de Graeve. He's indeed fighting this gentleman in the championship at the moment, so it's going to be a big blow to his chances of winning the overall title, I'm afraid. There's another split happening. That's Daleman, who's fallen off ever so slightly with Adam Wright. And Van Hoefden, Paul Gosling as well. And then even another gap here to Tusting, Stuart Musselwhite. And here out comes Hendrik de Graeve. And of course he's gonna want to finish the race because there is points on offer, and he might come through on other people who, if anyone needs repairs, he could sneak on through on them as well. So you gotta keep on running, but it's a well, an unlucky situation to say the least. We have a bit of a split here. 4 drivers peeling off from the rest. And let's get a panoramic view of the battle ahead here from the viewpoint of Matthew Sufi. Insider info from Kimby Haidt. And de Graeve had rising engine temps. I'd love for SDK to put that in as well, to sort of choose which driver you'd listen to and see if they're saying anything on the team radio. Of course, everyone's on Discord nowadays, so it's not gonna make a big difference, is it? But it would be a cool way to implement a sort of driver radio thing, which would be very much in the spirit of oval racing and NASCAR indeed. Now, Adam Wright is trying to follow up with a good race on the trot of his second place finish last week, but the car doesn't look to be in tip-top shape, I'm afraid. Oh, not bad enough that he isn't following along with Bart Daleman. And back with the leaders here on lap 56. Just over 100 laps left. And still, I think, in the hope that we might just go green for the rest of the way, especially in the manner that the race has sort of settled into a rhythm here. Shuffling of positions. In the second group at the moment. And then they come in pairs further down, which only hampers their chances of actually being able to come back from it. And then there is James Hall and the battered machine, I'm afraid, of Hendrik de Grave. That does not look good at all. And he's about to be lapped again. I think he's about 3 laps down for the time being. What happened to Stuart Musselwhite there? He's... Oh. It's a few laps ago by now. A little too heavy on the right foot. Something these cars are certainly prone to doing at low speed. Not really what they're designed for, and notoriously tricky as well when having to accelerate from a dead stop. When coming out of the pit lanes, for instance. I will have been guilty of such a thing myself on a few occasions, so And speaking of me in a pit lane, one of these cars are hopefully out on track as well. We did have plans of letting me loose and trying my luck at the Charlotte 400 last season. It didn't work out. Something came in the way. We'll have another shot, I think, at the end of this season, which I would absolutely enjoy. After having commentated on so many of these races, it would be absolute fun getting in there, getting my hands dirty, so to say. Although hopefully keeping them clean, I think would be the metaphor. They're indeed passing Hendrik de Grave. It's going to be a frustrating sight seeing Sufi sail through what looks to be good championship points for him. That we're going to see when we get a little bit further into the race, as it's still that positioning game. Still a lot could happen. But it doesn't look to me like the second pack here really has the impetus at the moment to come back on the leaders. But that's of course just a question about for how long do they keep it fighting up here. Right now Crater X is doing a good job of leading him. John Barnes defending his teammate. And Robbie Lundgren in a very decent spot as well. Just trying to notice how much are they actually leaning into the tires here, but it'll be quite a bit, I believe. And the lap times have risen as well by 1.2 seconds from the quickest times to what they're doing now. They've all been in, but I don't think any of them really have taken tires. That would have been a good thing to do, though, I think. A bit of lifting as well for Robin Lundgren. But the chase is really on between these two packs. And I'm afraid it's going to be a difficult task for them to really come back here now. Paul Gosling is going to sneak up through on Bart Daleman. They really need to let someone who's got the speed come to the fore here, because optimally they want to close that gap. 2.5 seconds it is up to Robbie Lundgren and the leading trio up ahead. And they're looking for this up ahead just to make those laps count down as quickly as they can. And see if they can keep on expanding the gap as well, of course. It wouldn't take all that much for everything to change. We've seen that before. That's very, very certain. It's just the slightest of missteps. Out comes the caution, and someone's coming into the pits there. That's one of the Brit cars. That's James Hall. Oh, he just went to the apron to let this pack through. It certainly seems like he isn't really feeling it for tonight. He's about to lose the position to Hendrik de Grave, and de Grave's looking at a few extra points if that's the case. Oh, he's been grinding the wall there, I'm afraid. And the safer barrier doing its job. And speaking of safety in oval racing, the safer barrier really is one of those inventions that's massively improved safety in these types of events. And to my knowledge, I don't think there's been a fatality in NASCAR, at least since they were introduced. But of course, with the speeds that are done in the close vicinity of cars at both tri-ovals and especially, of course, at the super speedways, the dangers are very, very real. And of course, the NASCAR machines in particular weigh quite a bit more than your average race car, so to say, be that a touring car or an open wheeler in particular, of course. So we're going to carry a lot of inertia when it does go wrong. And I'd have you excused for thinking that there's not a lot happening right now, but it's really that tactical phase of proceedings where it's all about just managing the tires as good as you can, managing the fuel. Oh, we got a caution out, and you gotta wonder what's the reason. And Robbie Lundgren has lost time, so that might have been something he's been implicated. Oh, that's Van Immerseel. Damien Van Immerseel, I'm afraid, has been involved in... Oh, let's see here. Well, it's him and Michael Tyler. I wonder if this is the situation that causes it. And if so, just what happened between the two? We're just trying to figure it out. Got the second caution period of the race. It's just come out. No, it's not gonna be this one. Oh! And he's gone. Oh, the engine is blown. His engine is blown. He's gonna be in the pits for a long time here. I'm afraid if that is not race over. Oh, and that's a major impact. Still a bit early on cutting in on it there. I'd like to just see a little bit more of what happened. That was with the same clip from before. I'm having to dig back through the replay clips to want to find out what happened. Yeah, this is on lap 68. I don't think... Yeah, this is all I can gather up. This is all the images we have of it, basically, which is lackluster, to say the least, in terms of... Oh dear God. Yeah, I don't know what they find so attractive about NASCAR. Or unattractive, that might be. Catch my drift. Anyway, we're in for another lap, I'm afraid. So, long caution periods, it has to be said, as we've had everyone into the pits. We've had everyone out again as well. Michael Tyler, De Grave comes out now. James Hall and Van Immerseel will be in for repairs, I think. De Grave is actually stopped right now. Michael Tyler's taking repairs. Greater X, Barnes, Sufi, Lundgren. It's as they were. That's very true, Kim. It's kind of making a mockery out of us, isn't it? The world of YouTube spam bots is certainly an interesting place. And one that we luckily haven't really had to explore until tonight. Yeah. Anyway, Greater X, Barnes, and company are gonna get back to green flag racing after this lap, as we are very, very close to the halfway mark of this race. And another word of thanks, of course, to our sponsor, NOIZEZZ. Go check out their webpage, and there's a link, as always, in the description below, to our real sponsor, and not webcam HD XYZ. Here, girls want you. No, I can't even read out that message because it doesn't make sense. At least it's not grammatically correct. And let us not dwell upon the chat bots any longer than necessary either, and let's get the racing back underway. Closing in on green flag, Austin Greater X. On row 2, it's Robbie Lundgren on the high side. Oh, they gotta be careful with that accordion. We've seen the chaos before, as they're trying to bunch up, and here we go. And Sufi's really been awake to it this time around. And I think he can just about squeeze in between the two Quantum cars here. John Barnes on the higher side of him. Barnes taking the slipstream of his teammate. That helps him out, at least for now. Robbie Lundgren's trying to go all up and over on Maddie Sufi. Paul Gosling's going for the tail end of Sufi here, trying to get through. Further down, that's Daleman and John Tusting. Stuart Musselwhite on the tail here, the last car on the lead lap. And up ahead, it's still Austin Greatorex in the lead. A bit of a bumper ride there with Greatorex. Someone's fallen a bit down the order there. That's Maddie Sufi, is down to 5th place. Being overtaken by Adam Wright. Let's see here, that's Sufi Lundgren. We've been going back and forth on one another. There goes Lundgren. Maybe there's a bit of a push involved. And here comes Adam right around Sufi. And then the last and most recent step in the tail is Sufi squeezing on the inside of Adam Wright and going back past up into 4th place. He'll be now looking at 3rd, currently held by Robbie Lundgren. If nothing else, it is impressive to watch just how close these cars can get to one another. So we're now into the final part of this race, the final half of the race. We're still a bit away from the real final, if so, if you will. Oh, a bit of a lift there from Adam Wright as they all swerve way onto the apron. Looking to get a little hectic with one another in that situation. And here's Paul Gosling from another onboard shot. You can see that gap. It's opened up, and now it looks to be closing back in. I think Gosling and John Tusting, they're trying to help one another. It's true, you really don't leave much in terms of margins of safety. Which is also why it takes oh so little to make those mistakes. And it's the tiniest of mistakes or misunderstandings even that can really cause the chaos. But that's the rule in all of racing, but it's just magnified tenfold when you're dealing with these oval races. A second and a half from this trio up to our leaders, so they're losing ground at the moment. We'll be looking about 35 minutes of racing from here. Be my immediate estimate. And then we might just have to see a green flag pit stop, although it's not gonna fall anytime soon. Everybody in the field having been in around lap 76, as we had that second caution period of the evening. And of course those pit stops under caution take away a lot of the real strategy of the races. Of course it's a big part of it, but once you get those green flag pit stops, that's where you can really make the difference. And that's also of course why we're seeing this 5-car train at the head of the field still on board now with Adam Wright. This is very much a game of just keeping your tires as fresh as you can, making sure it doesn't go into the red zone in terms of temperature. Make sure you don't lean on them too hard to heat them up excessively. Oh, a bit of a high line from one of the Quantum cars up ahead. I think that was Barnes. Would make sense. There's a bit of a gap to Greater X. Most of the time when you see the overtakes, it's a car having to lift off ever so slightly. The car behind can then, if the timing is right and all the angles are appropriate, just about make a pass. But it is fairly close to being flat out all the way around here. I'm not quite sure it's actually 100% flat all the way through, but I had a sneaking suspicion we're quite close to it. And by the way, the gap down to the Tusting trio, if you will, is now 2.2 seconds, so they're running away with it here. While I think that's it's not the 68 here. James Hall still has a whole car. That's Michael Tyler. That means De Grave currently sits 11th, and his points harvest is gonna be, well, not optimal. It's not gonna be all that bad either, is it? Oh, that sounded like someone had contact with something. Although I'm not quite sure it's actually the case. We'll have to see. Status quo though, for the time being. Closing in on lap 100 out of the 160 that we've got to go. And the order of the day has very much been Quantum at the front. Especially Austin Greatorex, who's led for a long time at this point. There's a sneaking feeling and suspicion as well that as per tradition, as per usual, it's all gonna kick off once we have the checkered flag in sight. And I think this is one of those tracks where you really can make moves late on. Time them right and all. That's it's always a thing, but I think it's gonna be possible to make some kind of magic happen late in this race. And with the width of this track as well, you can fit a lot of cars, especially on the straights. But as we've seen before, earlier on today, you can go 3 wide as well in the turns here. Oh, look at this. Here comes Robbie Lundgren on the inside of John Barnes. And that might be the move that Sufi's been waiting for. Greatorix is just staying high, helping his teammate out here. They're not conceding second place for nothing. Which of course makes sense, because they want to make sure that that they have that buffer. That's John Barnes at the moment, helping defend from Lundgren and Maddie Sufi, who, while they aren't teammates, they might have to figure out some form of alliance for now. The dark horse in all of this, and this time of course being Adam Wright, who came from a similar position actually last week when he ended up taking second place at Talladega. Again, having to take the liberties of sneaking in a bit of a drink of choice here and there, because it's a lot of talking having to be done, and there is a bit of lifting involved in these corners, so it's not all flat all the way through. At these speeds, the slipstream is a force to be reckoned with. That's why the team tactics played by Quantum at the moment might just turn out to be decisive in the end. 55 laps remaining of the NOIZEZZ Kansas 160. So that makes perfect sense. On fresh rubber it's probably flat, and once the degradation starts to kick in, it starts to become a bit of a lift here. The thing is that the tires tend to, at least they seem to level off without really losing all that much. They have their initial performance, and then of course for a bit of time you're gonna be really quick, and then it seems to sort of settle in at some point. And that makes it difficult going for the tire change in these races where you don't necessarily have to. The last laps are a pretty good marker on that. We're still in the mid-31s, which means we've been pretty stable on lap times for the last 60-70 laps or so. Focus on the 27 car on the track map. That'll be the leading quintet. And then the trio behind with Paul Gosling, John Tusting and Bram van Uyften. Oh, Robbie Lundgren's fallen back through this pack here. And there's now a slight gap to the two drivers up ahead. Just gonna wonder what happened there. Oh, so it's just Sufi getting in on Lundgren. Sufi might have been sensing that Robbie Lundgren, he's falling off the pace. Well, he needs to go with him immediately. He's done that. And Adam Wright has followed in as well. Lundgren is shuffled to the back of the pack now. He'll await his chance from back there. The experienced Swede. I think still waiting for his, still looking for his first win of this season. It's certainly not going to come to those who are just waiting for it. That's it's a rather lazy approach. I think if you're expecting to win. Anyway, Adam Wright has fallen to Robbie Lundgren for now at least. Might just be that Adam's content hanging out at the rear end of the group here. It's about 4 seconds to the Tusting trio. Bart Daleman has had something happen to him, I think. Whatever that was, it's a very good question indeed. Not really something I can figure out. Seems to be a little bit strange. Might have been the tires. It's just gone way over the cliff for his sake. And I'm actually not sure whether that's true or not. My apologies. And I don't have anything showing on the event viewer, so it doesn't seem like he's really been in any sort of calamitous situation, if you will. Here we are with Adam Wright again. And look at that Lundgren, Adam Wright. That is gaps opening. They're by no means big. They could be closed quickly. It could be a question of cooling either the engine or just making sure that for a second here you can actually relax a bit. It's a dangerous game to play because all of a sudden you're gonna find yourself out of the slipstream and you're gonna drop back in the end here. Matty Sufi, no intention of dropping back, that is for sure. He's gonna be pushing on all the way to see if he can pick up a win today here. What's happened for Bram van Uyften? Van Uyften, who hasn't been passed by anyone, but he's certainly been dropped from his trio of old. Let's all come back together at the head of affairs. As we're coming in towards the final 40 laps of racing here. Gonna be about 20 minutes remaining, and in turn, these are the 20 minutes where it all could begin really heating up. Paul Gosling and John Tusting hardly close enough to really help one another. As Adam Wright, I think, is attempting something there on Robert Lundgren. He's gotten through for now at least. But interestingly, doesn't really look like anyone's been able to topple the Quantum cars so far. It's still Greatorex, John Barnes, and then there's been the shuffling in behind of the two. And the pace has indeed been strong enough to split the field, so to say, as well. A track like this and a race like this as well is really gonna go well for the drivers. Oh, John Barnes has a little bit of a contact with the wall there that immediately opens the door for Adam Wright on Matty Sufi, who has to hold off. You gotta wonder if that did any damage to John Barnes. Adam Wright now applies the pressure immediately. He knows this is a chance. This is a chance to get a foot in the door. And that's a late dive to the inside. It seems that it hasn't really affected John Barnes too bad. Saying that though, he might have lost a little bit of speed. Now again, good team driving from the Quantum cars, staying on the high line together to utilize the draft as well as possible. They get far enough away from Adam Wright that he can't take advantage of the side draft either. Although I think in the end, he's actually got it. Certainly looks that way. And that's going to shuffle John Barnes into 5th place. And there you say the defensive lines have been broken up ahead here for Austin Greatorex. Adam Wright, Sufi, Lundgren, all of them passed on John Barnes. Although it's by no means over for John Barnes. Still in with a good shout. Now what's going on here up ahead? That's interesting, to say the very least. Look at this, Adam Wright up the inside of Greatorex. And you wonder if the Quantum cars decided just on going together here. All of a sudden, Sufi holding off at the right time there. And then they shuffle about. And that's now the running order. Adam Wright leading Matty Sufi, Robbie Lundgren, and then the two Quantum cars, Greatorex and John Barnes. Doesn't look like Paul Gosling or John Tusting is really coming back into it. And at the same time, I don't think they're gonna come in for tires at all in this race. Just the feeling, a sneaking suspicion that they're gonna stay out. It's simply not worth it. And now I think we can safely say that we are really entering the final and decisive phases of this race. The moves has indeed started. And I think you'd be surprised if nothing comes on Adam Wright. I think a lot of shuffling about on these front 5 drivers has yet to happen here as John Barnes is, well, either he's preparing a run on the drivers up ahead, and that's one thing you can actually do by just falling back ever so slightly and then just taking it flat as much as possible, of course. The straightaway is there and behind, but it's a little bit more difficult on a car that even has the slipstream from up ahead, so we'll have to see just how they manage to do. Well, it takes a high line here, might be searching for a smooth line for the tires at this point. I think there's a pit stop here for Paul Gosling and John Tusting as well. And you gotta wonder if they're realizing that, hey, they might have to pit at some point before the end anyways. That's a very interesting prospect as well. I don't think we had the drivers able to do around 90 laps, or just in the vicinity of that. 85 or so. I think it's gonna be, if you were to go from lap 76 to the end of it. Fuel indeed could be getting critical here. This could be the problem for the Quantum cars as well. We're now both coming in and attempting an undercut on the 3 drivers up ahead, who all of them stays out. Adam Wright, Matty Sufi and Robbie Lundgren. Here is Stuart Musselwhite. Bart Daleman goes past there as well. Here they are. Oh, that looks like tires for John Barnes. I wonder, a pit time of 15 seconds. Is that going to be tires every single time and me not realizing? I'd be a little bit surprised. But let us see. Matty Sufi's gone in as well. He's reacted early. And then Adam Wright and Robert Lundgren, who's been at the back of the front pack there for so much of the time, able to do that extra lap. Of course, it only makes sense if you can really stick to it and go flat out, not really having to save fuel or do anything. I'm gonna have your fastest laps here at the very end of the stint. Lundgren's in, Wright is in as well. Van Uytven still out. Here comes Sufi. And now the interesting part is, where does Austin Greatorex sneak into all of this? Matty Sufi, and there goes Greatorex and John Barnes. Been helping one another on the high side. And actually enough that they've got a bit of an advantage, I think, here on Matty Sufi. Now the rest of the gang here is leaving the pits. My apologies. That's Robbie Lundgren and Adam Wright. But they're also gonna get the well, indeed, that must be fresh tires all the way around, because lap times are indeed down to the mid-30s. So now a new situation here. 24 laps to go. Austin Greaterix leading with John Barnes. And then 3.5 seconds down is Matty Sufi. And then Robbie Lundgren and Adam Wright. But we might just see some of these drivers with tires that are now that little bit fresher towards the end of the race have that little bit of an advantage as well. And just how this is going to work out, well, it's going to be interesting to see. Sufi might be falling back to get a bit of a helping hand from Bart Daleman, although I'm not quite sure how much of a helping hand it's going to be if he comes up to him, because he's got Robert Lundgren in there as well, and Lundgren's going to go on right or left, but he's going to go through on the low side. That is the left side indeed. So that green flag pit stop at what's that, 24 laps, 26 to 24, or 24 to 26 laps left, could just seal the deal for Quantum Racing. We're looking at it now, 22 laps to go. That's Van Uyten and I think Hendrik de Grave as well, now tagging along to the rear of the Quantum drivers. They were quite a bit quicker as well in the pit lane time overall, over a second quicker than Robin Lundgren at least. Not that much of a gain on Matty Sufi for Quantum. Just about 0.2 of a second overall on the final pit stop. But it all adds up, especially when it comes to accelerating out on track, as we saw it before. Here's the third of the Quantum cars. Garjan testing on the tail here of Paul Gosling. We're hoping for the on-track battle to go all the way, but I'm afraid that pit stop has sort of settled things down ever so slightly. Austin Greaterix, John Barnes now ahead by about, well, just in the vicinity of 4 seconds. Which is a very decent advantage to be sitting on within the final 20 laps. There'll be less than 10 minutes remaining of this race by now. And unless something crazy happens here in the final bits and bobs of the race, it could be a third win of the season for Austin Greaterix. Could be a 1-2 for Quantum as well. Stuart Musselwhite has gone through on Bart Daleman. I think Musselwhite's come back from quite a way back. And Van Uyten is in the pits at the moment, isn't he? No. Oh, he was, but that's a few laps ago by now, so my apologies for that. They've taken some time out of them though. And the last laps for the followers here, 0.2 of a second quicker. But I don't necessarily think it's going to be enough to be able to catch back up. The gap is now 3.5 seconds. We're coming on to the final 14 laps of this race. And John Tosting has been off track. And he's still off track, I'm afraid. He's come back on. Oh, and he's made contact with Musselwhite. It's yet to bring out the caution, and I don't think it will. Oh, that is well kept by John Tosting. He's not going to be too happy with that, I think. So we'll be watching that gap from the leading Quantum duo. I'm back to these three drivers: Matty Sufi, Robbie Lundgren, and Adam Wright. Still gaining a little bit on the last lap. But it was just about a tenth or two, and that's just not gonna be enough. Even if they keep up that sort of gain all the way to the line, they might really have to help one another here. There's the 96 getting out of the way. There is Austin Greatrix and John Barnes indeed. They got Bram van Uyten for company. He's sitting in 8th place at the moment, and he is a single lap down as he's racing Bart Daleman for position at the moment. He is indeed also going a fair bit quicker. Just about 3 seconds the advantage. It's gonna be more than hard, I'm afraid, for Matty Sufi to close that gap. With tires that are just 2 laps fresher, that's not a lot of leeway, I'm afraid. And while they are within 3 seconds, I don't think they're closing it quickly enough. We're gonna have to see. I think they'll be duking it out for the final podium spot between the 3 drivers here. Here's John Tosting. With Stuart Musselwhite, who is a further lap behind, I think. But of course, Robbie Lundgren wants to get that 3rd place, that much is for sure. Matty Sufi wants to keep it, because he wants to gain every single point he can on Hendrik de Grave. And certainly running closer than you see the drivers up in front, and with that little bit of a safety margin from Austin Greatrix onto John Barnes. Just want to make sure they're not stricken by anything here at the end. Oh, and did someone come to a stop there, or was it just a little bit of a... I think it might have been what I would call an optical illusion, but it looked like something happened there in the background of the picture. Although possibly not. I might have been fooled there, which is what I actually suspect is what happened here. 5 laps to go. Raider X, John Barnes. Is John Barnes gonna mount a challenge here in the end on his teammate? Or are they just gonna cruise to the checkered flag in formation flight? I'm gonna have to see. They lost a little bit of time on clearing that traffic. It's now down to 2.3 seconds. But again, at this late stage, I just don't think they're gonna have enough to shoot with here. Lundgren on the inside now of Matti Sufi is there. Probably more into scrapping for places here, but we have seen it come together at a late stage. I just don't think it's gonna happen here today, and Sufi looks like he wants that space back immediately. Who isn't really able to find a way past on Robbie Lundgren for now, at least. So, begs the question, will John Barnes go for it? The final 2 laps? Or is it going to be the win? Or this man a 3rd win of the season, in that case, for Austin Greatorex. Sufi's back past on Lundgren here in behind, so they might keep battling it all the way to the line, I think. That's more than likely. We've seen the white flag. And with that out, I don't think much is going to happen up ahead, but it might all happen here. 2.2 seconds. And as such, they're not going to make it up to here. They're not going to make it back to the leaders, are they? I don't think so. And here is the checkered flag. And it's going to be John Barnes. And whether or not that was T-Motors or not, or just a good-hearted man by the name of Austin here, John Barnes certainly has deserved a win this season. He's been on course for it. And it's been taken away from him time and time again. This time around, he gets it here at the NOIZEZZ Kansas 160, and Matti Sufi does get that 3rd place in the end. Let's have another look at the white flag lap here. And this is, of course, the battle for 3rd place. Adam Wright, Matti Sufi, and Robert Lundgren. And there it is. No challenge mounted in the end from Robbie Lundgren. Matti Sufi gets 3rd place. A good race, I think, but the fireworks at the end maybe ever so slightly failing to show in the end. That's a bit of a shame. Double donuts from Quantum. It's been a night to remember for them. And we're, of course, looking forward to getting them in the booth as well shortly. First of all, of course, gonna have a look at the race results. There it is, confirmed on screen. John Barnes takes it ahead of Austin Greatorex, then Matti Sufi, Robbie Lundgren, and Adam Wright, rounding off the top 5. John Tosting gets 6th ahead of Paul Gosling, Bram van Aerten, Bart Daleman, and Stuart Musselwhite in the top 10. Then Hendrik de Graave, James Hall, Michael Tyler, and Damien van Immerzeel. They're still blowing engines out there, aren't they? With that said, I think think indeed we can look to have drivers in here, and we'll go from lower to higher here. Matty Sufi, third place finish for you today, but with the poor luck of Hendrik de Grave, it's a solid points haul in the end, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that was my main objective for today. Was try to extend the lead on Hendrik, and then I think at the first caution he was involved. I'm not sure what happened, but okay. So I thought this is my chance to capitalize on this, and obviously I don't wish anybody bad luck, but okay, you have to take the opportunities that you get. So yeah, then that was I was able to stay up with the leaders there, with the Quantum boys, and I think with Rob and Adam for most part of the race, and yeah, then on the final pit stop, the Quantum boys played it perfectly. They pitted together, they got out together, they continued to work very well together, and they got a jump on us. So in the end, we were catching, but we were coming a few laps short there, and still had an interesting battle with Rob there for P3. But I'm glad we got on the podium again.
Well, indeed, and we're coming into the final 4 rounds of the season here, and you're in a really good position. You spoke about the points haul here, and it's going to be a shootout between you and Hendrik for the title. What's your take on the final few races here?
Well, yeah, still a lot can happen. I think. I mean, I have a bit of an advantage, but it can fade away very quickly, as we all know. One bad race, and you get yourself back together. So yeah, I think there's Darlington coming up. I think it's a bit of a dark horse. I never really raced at Darlington, so I don't know really what to expect. So I'll have to put on a bit of training there. And I think the final race is charted, and it's the 400 or the 600 miles. I don't know how many miles it is, but it's a very long race, and it's double points. So I think everything will be to play for at the final race. So key will be to keep up the momentum, try to finish the next few races as high up as possible, and then we'll see how it turns out going into the final race.
Well, indeed, many thanks for joining me here post-race in the comms booth. Is there anyone that you'd like to send a shout-out to or thank you?
I'm gonna take the opportunity to thank Ian. He has been a rough few weeks, I think, privately and with work, and he couldn't make the last few races, but he's always there behind the scenes, setting up everything, the servers, the broadcast, everything. So a big shout-out to him for setting everything up so we can have a race. And yeah, hope to see him on track again next week.
Well, indeed, thanks for joining in, Matty. I hope to see you as well in the booth for an interview after one of these final races as well.
Thank you.
So that was Matty Sufi, our third place finisher. We're gonna jump on, and I'm gonna do something I do when we have the chance to do it and bring in the two of you at once, gentlemen. Of course, it's Austin Greatorex and John Barnes of Quantum Racing. And a 1-2 finish, a stylish one indeed, and I suppose it was things coming due to those who deserve it, John. For it's been close, and you've been in a position to win several times. It hasn't quite worked out until it did tonight, then in the very end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, this was my 5th pole, and I had more slaps led, but for some reason couldn't even get a podium. So good to get my first win. I think it's my first win for SRW for any class as well. So, and but thanks to Austin really for this one because especially after I hit the wall and took some damage. Yeah, definitely Austin would have had it otherwise.
And Austin, you really managed to make the difference on that final pit stop with what looked like an inspired decision to pit 2 laps earlier than everyone else. Basically, what was the reason to call it that way particularly?
Well, we'd been talking throughout that stint before the final stop, and I just made the call to John that track position was a lot more important. We could see through that big stint that they struggled overtaking us. So once John got that bit of damage and they got past, we made the decision that we'd pit earlier, so I kind of let them past and made it look like they passed us, just so we could have the track position. But then with the actual stop itself, I don't know if they got held up or we were just that much quicker. But it helped us with the gap, and obviously gave us the gap. I think about 3.5 second lead when they all got out, so it worked perfectly for us.
Because with how the race shaped out, I was at least expecting it to come down to a bit of fireworks, and you threw a bucket of water on that with that pit stop. Of course, brilliant for you, not so much for those who won last lap overtakes, but obviously when you want to win a race and you're in for it, it's much nicer having it that way. Anyways, gentlemen, thank you for joining me in the booth. We're a bit under time pressure, I'm afraid. We won't have time for much more than asking of course, as per tradition, if there is anyone you should like to thank or shout out while you're live on the air.
Yeah, I'll do that. Yeah, I was going to say thanks very much, Austin, for letting me have that one, and to the Sim team at Quantum, because Paul and John have really been helping out a lot in the background, and to you guys for the broadcast and SRW. Thank you.
Well, thank you so much for joining me as well. Congratulations on the win, on the strong result, and on the very good race for the both of you.
Thank you. Have a good night, Hasse.
And you too, gentlemen. But that was John Barnes and Austin Greatorex, and a great race for both of them indeed. It's going to be the end of our broadcast here. I do appreciate you all tuning in with us here on Simracersworld TV. With me alone in the booth, Hasse Rømer. It's been a long night in that sense, and my vocal cords need a bit of rest soon. I do see why we're at 2 normally when I do it all alone. But it's been a pleasure. Thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you to NOIZEZZ for sponsoring this week's race, and do indeed check them out. There's a link to their webpage in the description below. If you like what you've seen here tonight on Simracersworld TV, leave us a like. If you don't, well, leave us a dislike. And if you want to see more, there is a subscribe button for you to hit indeed. With that said, until next time, take care, have fun, and bye-bye.